Hi there, welcome to Swag Center. I'm Max Etheridge and I'm your host this evening. Today I'm joined by 6 sports reporters from around the country. Joining us from Mobile, Alabama, Kyle Winke. Joining us from Sacramento, California, Derek Zenger. Joining us from Little Bighorn, Montana, Jake Decora. From Augusta, Maine, Josh Butteris. From Boston, Massachusetts, Jacob Taylor. From Toronto, Ontario, Sawyer Livesey. Our first topic this evening, we will be discussing the movie we watched, Youngstown Boys, which is an ESPN 30 for 30 film that was directed by Jeff and Michael Zimbalist. The movie follows the storyline of Jim Tressel and Maurice Clarett, two people who were from Youngstown, Ohio. And it goes through the rise of Maurice Clarett and the ultimate fallout of him after he leaves Columbus. So we'll be discussing some of these topics. To fill in our viewers on this film, I'll fill you in a little bit on what Youngstown Boys is all about. The movie, like I said, is an ESPN 30 for 30 film. It was about 100 minutes long, and it follows the career of Maurice Clarett, who was a running back at Ohio State his freshman year. He had a very, very good freshman year. In high school, he was touted as one of the best athletes to maybe come out of Ohio in a very, very long time. At Ohio State, in his first game, he had a very successful game, having 3 touchdowns and over 150 rushing yards. He then went on to have a very good freshman year, helping lead his team to the national championship win against Miami in 2002. Following his freshman year, though, he got into some legal problems. It was believed that he was donated a car by boosters, which would be illegal, which is something we covered this year in Sports and Society. He had a car and some possible money that he may have not supposed to have. He came from a rough background, and people questioned how he could have such nice of a car and how he could have over $1,000 in spending money. So the athletic director at the time of Ohio State was a man named Andy Geiger. Andy Geiger proceeded to suspend Maurice Clarett for his entire sophomore year and pretty much just cast him off as if he never existed from Ohio State. Maurice Clarett then, during his sophomore year, wanted to partake in the NFL draft. He wanted to be known as somebody who was one and done in college and then proceed to the NFL. Unfortunately, the rules don't allow that to happen. The rule is you have to be out of high school for 3 years before you can enter the NFL draft. He took this to court and he won his first court case, and he was eligible to be in the 2003 NFL draft. Well, things happened and they took the court case back to court in an appeal process between the NFL and Maurice Clarett, and Clarett lost, and he had to go, he had to wait another couple years until he could enter the NFL draft. He then entered the draft after waiting out 3 years from high school, and it was not very successful. He had a very bad combine. He ran a very bad 40 time, but he was drafted by the Denver Broncos in the 3rd round. He ran into alcohol problems during training camp of his time with the Broncos, and he was cut by the team before even playing a game for the Broncos. He then got involved with some of the wrong people. He moved out to Los Angeles and hooked up with one of his old childhood buddies, and that was a mess. He turned into a major alcoholic, a sex addict, and he got in a lot of trouble. He robbed some people, and he ended up going to jail. Before his trial, as he was waiting trial for his robbery sentence, he took many loaded guns and drove off in a car down the highway and was involved in a high-speed car chase. But he talked to some people while he was driving, like his mother, and his mother convinced him to not do anything stupid, and he pulled over the car and was arrested by police. He was sent to jail, and he went, I think, for 3 years. And he came out, though, kind of a new, changed man. He had a wife and a daughter after he left jail, and he turned into quite a success story now. He's speaking to He's speaking to many boys and girls clubs and homeless people and just children to try to set people on the right path after drug and alcohol abuse. So that was basically the story of Maurice Clarett. And now we're going to talk to some of our sports reporters on what they thought about the movie. So my first question for you guys, what did you guys just think about the movie? Let's go to Kyle first.
Overall, I actually did like the movie because it focused, although it did focus on the negative aspects of the story, it did also bring out some of the positive aspects, such as helping other people, which Maurice Clarett did, such as volunteering at the Kids Youth Center.
So Derek, what did you think of the movie?
Alright, I enjoyed the film a lot. You feel for Maurice Clarett and what he went through. Growing up in the places that he did, he's a product of his environment and can't really help. Not having a dad growing up or a father figure, he turned to Jim Tressel and put a lot of trust in them. And then ultimately that backfired on him with Andy Geiger and what he did to him. Like, you feel a lot of hatred to what he did, and you don't like that guy.
So Dago, what did you think of the film?
Thought the movie was good overall. Has kind of your traditional story of a kid growing up in the inner city, gets well, gets good, something tragic happens, and then there's always the downfall, tragic hero. Movie pretty good, entertaining. Would I watch it again? No.
I thought this movie was a great movie, even though it had a heartbreaking storyline to it. I mean, this is a kid growing up from the inner city of Youngstown, and he's all around drugs, and even in the movie they said he was literally inches away from being shot in the head from when some random people shot up his house. And he finally thought he was going to make it big when he got recruited to Ohio State and eventually played on the team and started as a freshman. And he was starting to do really well, scoring touchdowns, gaining all over 100 yards per game. And then he gets screwed over by his athletic director, Andy Geiger, and he just goes downhill from there.
Well, Max, I thought it was a good movie because it showed both sides of the parties. It also showed Maurice Clarett and everyone who followed him and the people who didn't like him and wanted him gone from Ohio State.
I thought the movie was very interesting and exciting. It gave a behind-the-scenes view on a troubled football player trying to make it big. One thing I didn't like about the movie, though, was athletic director Andy Geiger. I thought he was the downfall of Maurice in many ways. Overall, I thought the movie was very good, though.
One thing that was touched in the movie was the idea of Maurice Clarett being a one-and-done player and only going to college for 1 year and then entering the NFL draft. What do you guys think of the possibility of being only in college for 1 year and then going straight to the NFL?
Well, Max, I do not think they should be able to leave after the first year of college because I feel like they need the experience playing in the league with a lot more talent than just like basic high school, and they need to get used to be playing against faster players and more athletic players so that way they're better prepared for the NFL. And they need to learn life lessons because these guys will only be like in their teens and maybe early 20s, so I feel like they need the time and experience.
Can I step in here? I will disagree with you because I believe if a player believes he's ready for the NFL draft and to get into the NFL, I believe that he should. Because if he doesn't, then it kind of bites him back in the face, then obviously he wasn't ready. But if he is ready and he feels like he's strong enough, ready enough, willing enough, he can.
Another thing is, like, you're not seeing, like, all these players going. It's the standout players, the players that you know are going to be future NFL stars and stuff. It's not players, like, that aren't going to start right away.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with Derek. If you're ready to go to the NFL, you should be able to go.
I mean, I agree too. Sorry, Kyle. No one's going to agree with you. But this also offers a way for those college players who are ready for the next level, a way to get money because a lot of them are coming from inner city backgrounds, not growing up pretty wealthy. So this is a quick way to get money quickly.
Well, in my opinion, I kind of agree with Kyle. But in my opinion, from the viewer standpoint, I know a lot of college basketball fans, they hate the one-and-done scenario, and I would not like to see that for football going that way where you see this one player all of a sudden just shine and then they go straight to the NBA and then they do okay like most of the one-and-dones have done recently. So I'd like to see more players step in and be 3-4 year players for their college.
Well, it's not really about you. It's about them, what they think's best for them and stuff. It's their decisions if they want to go or not. I mean, we shouldn't have any say on if they want to do this or that.
Well, Derek, if you look at a NFL draft board and all the players that are drafted throughout the NFL draft, you see how many players of them actually pan out. Most of them do not pan out. They actually turn out to be busts. And I feel like they need the college experience to be able to be ready for their NFL career.
Well, we need to go back for the reason. Sorry, Derek. We need to go back to the reason. Okay, he could go in to be a bust. This is about if he feels like he's ready enough to enter the draft and that he should. I believe that he should because obviously he showed that he was ready enough in the movie. and that he was strong enough and willing enough. So
But 85% of the players that go to the NFL do not pan out. Majority of them actually become busts or do not like start anywhere. When you hear players that come out of nowhere and become NFL stars like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady out of Michigan.
But who's to say that like if they don't leave early that they're not going to be a bust? I mean, they could still be a bust staying like until their junior year. I mean, it's not a guarantee that them staying and getting stronger and stuff because they're going to get strong in the NFL. I mean, they got their own weight training and stuff. It's not college; it's the next step. They're going to have stuff for them to do.
But also think of it like this way. What happens if one of the players do turn out to be a bust, but then they left college after 1 year instead of going 3 years or even getting their degree after 4 years, and then they're sitting on the streets not making any money thinking that they're going to make it big in the NFL, and then they're just sitting there homeless, on welfare and stuff like that.
It's up to them. I mean, it's their decision. They don't have to go.
But then,
They gotta think what's best for them and stuff.
And you're still gonna get paid even if you're a bust because you get signed a contract. I mean, the team can cut you, but I mean, if you think you're good enough to go on, then that's not just gonna be like a cocky thing. Like I could say I'm good enough, go on, I'd get cut, and then I'd be left with no money. But if I was like skill, like Maurice Claret, then you're gonna obviously have some skill. You'll at least be on a practice squad, and you'll still be getting paid. And then those years where you could spend in college. He's on a practice squad competing at the NFL level. He's still going to get better, and then he'll end up making more money than if he went through college and then entered at the NFL level.
Yeah, like the minimum wage for those practice squad guys, it's tens of thousands of dollars for just like a couple months or weeks of work. So, I mean, who's to say they can't get another like side job? They don't have to be making like real good money at the other job. They're already making close to $100,000 just doing on the practice squad.
Right, and that tens of thousands of dollars is still more than what you'd have playing at the college level.
I also think with the age of all the players that they might just blow through their money. I mean, we're 18, 19 years old. We're going out blowing all of our money that we make on just like stupid stuff. And I think you have to be kind of like more educated into like what you actually want to have with your money. And people who are 18, 19 years old aren't going to be able to pay for their car, stuff like that. Like I don't know what I'm going to do when I leave my house.
Well, from personal experience, when I'm going to be 18, I know what I'm going to do. Money's not going to be an issue, but that's a different topic. We'll continue later on with that.
Research actually shows.
No, Kyle, let me go.
No, I have a good point.
Kyle actually like brought. He was like Kyle go.
Research. Are you following?
Kyle, you've already used your research.
No, I have more research. Okay. Research actually shows that 70% of players that make the NFL turn out to blow through all their money, and by the time they're done with their career, end up bankrupt. And this is the big problem. So I think a few more years in college might help them find financial stability, and then so they're prepared for their future. And if they do not make it in the NFL or succeed there, they're gonna have to go with a college degree somehow and be able to make money not playing football.
Well, back to what you said, Josh, how you said that people will be like dumb and just blow their money and stuff. It actually showed in the movie that he was an intelligent individual and that he actually had some brains on his shoulders.
Okay, so you said like they can rely on a college degree, but if you look at the degrees that these kids are getting from the colleges and stuff, they're not degrees that you can like live on. They're joke degrees. I mean, they're not there to get a degree or education. They're there to play a sport. And if that sport can get them somewhere in the future, then they need to go all in with that. Because that degree that they're going to get in education, that's not going to help them.
So you're telling me that education will not help a person succeed later in life?
No, because these kids, they're from backgrounds and stuff that where education is not like
That education is not
crap. No, where education isn't focused on, and like there's not an emphasis on education. Like Maurice Claret, where he's from, this like the ghettos and stuff. Like they don't really care about their education. Like you like seeing the film, they're talking about like there's like 3 options: steal cars, sell drugs, or kill people. Like those are like the 3 things that those like kids from that area turn out to be. So like they're not smart enough to get educations from these schools that they're going to. They would not be going to these schools if it wasn't for sports.
And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
friends picking on you? Well, try new fly swatter glasses. They prevent those tears from falling so you can't be seen embarrassed in public. Look at the sun. Bounces right off those lenses. I can't believe it. You will be the envy of all your friends. Look at that. They're bros now. So buy the fly swatter glasses from Milton Bradley online for only $9.99 plus shipping and handling.
And we're back. Our next question for you guys is, do you think college athletes should be able to be paid? Something they touched on in the movie was Maurice Clarett potentially took money from private donors for a possible car or just cash. Do you think college athletes should be able to be paid? Let's start this discussion off with Sawyer. What do you think about college athletes being paid?
I think college athletes should be paid because if they want to sell their autographs, it's their name, their person, it's their property. If they want to sell it, why not?
Okay, well, the NCAA takes over that because they're giving them the scholarship, the school. I mean, they're getting paid with the education, and I know a lot of people are saying how like the education's not enough. It's not even a real education. Well, that should be more on the players' fault because they should put just as much time in the classroom as they should on the field.
Well, you're saying like they're getting paid with their scholarship, but not all schools are offering scholarships and stuff. Like, not every kid is going to get a scholarship. And also, hard for these kids. I mean, you know how it is with us. Most of us play football here. Like, it's a lot of time commitment to do that. And with them, it's even worse. They got to put so much more time in and stuff that they don't have time to be able to do their schoolwork all the way. And then be able to pay. Like, they can't pay for anything either. They can't get a job because they'd have to do in football, school, and a job. They don't have time for that. Like,
Everything from their athletic abilities and their talents is a free education due to their scholarship.
not all of them are getting a scholarship though, and even if they are getting a scholarship, not all of them getting free rides and stuff. They still have to pay for stuff. Like, yeah, they're getting a free education, but that doesn't count for like living expenses, food, all that other stuff. Like, they still have
most of their meals are being paid for.
Okay, but they still have to pay for other stuff. I mean, you can't. You're telling me you don't spend any other money on stuff other than just food. Like, you still buy stuff.
Well, if you're talking about how they have to take up so much time for football or whatever sport they're getting a scholarship for, they don't really need the money to go out and party or have
I'm
fun.
not saying partying, but like.
Well, I mean, still, if it's taking up that much
Okay,
time,
let's just say
you don't need a lot.
You want a cell phone, right? This is like $200 for a cell phone plus whatever like it is a month to pay for the bills and stuff. And let's say like a lot of these kids are from like poor backgrounds and stuff. Their families aren't going to pay for it, and it's something that they might need. Like,
Also, do you know how much money college athletic departments make compared to how much scholarships they give out? It's barely anything. And how much money they make off concessions? Like a hot dog is $3.50.
Actually, most schools actually lose money from football and all these other things. Like, they do not actually make money. They actually lose money. Like, all the D3 schools, D2 schools lose money. Most schools that make money are, like, the big schools, like Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas. It's, like, the big football schools that only make money.
I do agree with you with most colleges losing money, but there are also private boosters that can give players money that isn't coming from the college that can keep them afloat and players getting money to survive in college.
if you could regulate that and stuff and make sure it's not like over the board and kids are getting like Mercedes and stuff like all the time.
Yeah, just enough money to get them through the week.
Yeah. Like, don't be like making them rich and stuff, but make sure they have enough money to live. I mean, another thing is like selling their autographs. Like, Johnny Manziel got in trouble for selling his autograph. I think that's completely unfair. Like, why can't it's his? Like, college students that are like in music and stuff, and they can sell their records when they're in college. They have nothing to like say they can't. So I think that's completely
Well,
unfair.
let me stop you there, Derek, because the problem is people go way overboard with this kind of stuff. For example, the movie you watched with Maurice Clarett, he was getting cars, lots of extra cash, anything he wanted to be
It
able
wasn't
to play.
proven that he got that car. Like, he got that car legitly.
And now we go live to San Antonio, Texas at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl for the breaking news commitment of star middle linebacker Javante Jones. Max Ethertube live from San Antonio, Texas at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. I'm here today with number one middle linebacker recruit Javante Jones from Birmingham, Alabama.
Represent.
We'll be selecting today where he'll be going to school next year between Auburn, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, and North Carolina. Javante, do you have any last words you'd like to say before you select where you'll be attending college next year?
Yeah, Max, I just want to thank y'all and the show from Swag Center for having me on here today to pick my college and my future. First of all, I want to thank God, the all creator of the earth. I want to thank my family, my friends, my supporters for having me out here today and putting me in where I am today right now, okay? I want to give a shout out to my Billy Bob. 2 today, big 2. And I'll be making my decision.
Okay, and here is Javante's decision. Where will you be going to school next year, Javante? Oh, not Auburn.
I'll be taking my talents to the University of Tennessee.
And you heard it here first, guys. Javante Jones will be attending the University of Tennessee Volunteers next year. Big win.
They're playing basketball
all around the
We
world.
love their basketball.
To the beach,
They're
y'all.
playing basketball.
The book Hoop Dreams shadows the life of 2 athletes by the name of Arthur Agee and William Gates. It talks about how they grew up in the ghetto in Chicago and were later brought to St. Joseph's High School, which is a private school, to play basketball for them. And the head coach of that school was Coach Pingatori, who some people argue is only about winning state championships rather than caring about the players. And that's a big issue that's brought up. Also, the big issue of race is brought up in there because Arthur and William are 2 of the very few black kids at the school of St. Joseph's, and
They're playing basketball
all around the
We
world.
love their basketball.
that is an excellent question. A really, really thought out question. Sports and society is a class that we take this year. And this book relates to society because it talks about gender issues, racial issues, and like financial stability issues.
Alright, well, this book had a lot to do with the societal issues we were talking about in sports and society, like the 2 African American kids growing up in the ghetto of Chicago. It talks a lot about that and the problems they face with, like, their dad was a drug dealer and he beat his wife. So
then Arthur and William, they get recruited to this all-white, primarily white school, all-white school, St. Joseph, and so they're there to play basketball, but one of them doesn't pan out as well as he's expected to because of like the background he comes from, being the inner city, abusive father, and not well put together family. So then the St. Joseph just cuts off the tuition they're paying for him, and so he can't afford it, and he has to drop out because there's just no way to possibly pay for it. While William gets to continue on playing because he makes varsity, he does good, and then they want him, so they pay for him, but they won't pay for Arthur.
And to go off what you're saying, like they do struggle with personal finance. Because Arthur ends up dropping out of school, and like you said, his dad's a drug dealer. He abuses his mom or his wife, so they're struggling with money in the family. And William ends up having a kid while he's in high school, and they don't have the money to do that, so William had to drop out. But I mean, he focused more on his future, but he still had to deal with his kid and his girlfriend and money.
It also relates to sports and society because we watched that one movie where that girl was pregnant and she couldn't play, and also I think it was Arthur's girlfriend got pregnant, and so there was much issues with that. Williams.
Well, yeah, but didn't Arthur want to? Wasn't he consensual with getting her pregnant? Like it wasn't accidental. It was William.
William.
Okay.
William.
Well, that just looks bad.
Still though, like, it's partly to do with like where they grew up and stuff, and like I would say it's acceptable. It's kind of like the social norm for them, like. Well, like
Yeah,
no, it's
they
like
are. Because where they grow up,
Yeah,
from
it's
the,
like-
inner city.
the
They
inner
don't
city,
get
like,
out.
it's not-
Lifelong lessons, because right when William had his kid, his girlfriend said that he was dedicated. He'd wake up in the morning and exercise. He was so dedicated to basketball from then, and I think it did have a positive impact on his life.
I'm reading a book. I'm reading a book. Don't you ever interrupt me while I'm reading a book. I'm reading a book. I'm reading a book. Don't you ever interrupt me while I'm reading a book.
My book
is called The Leroy Butler Story. It's an autobiography written by Leroy Butler himself. This discusses his life, starting from childhood to his professional career in the NFL. It starts off talking about how he was raised in the ghetto in Jacksonville, and he was paraplegic. This kind of relates to the wheelchair basketball stuff we watched. He grew up in a wheelchair, and about the age of 6, he was able to get into some braces so he could actually walk around, but they were very, strenuous on his legs, and he wasn't able to walk well. He couldn't get upstairs or anything like that, and it was a big challenge of his life. Then when he grew up a little bit more, he was able to actually overcome that adversity and be able to walk, and eventually he became to run and train, and he ended up making the NFL and played for the Green Bay Packers, invented the Lambeau Leap, just a successful player overall for the NFL, and his story was very inspiring.
I read the book Every Day is Game Day by Fran Tarkenton. It is an autobiography about him when he went for his college career in Athens, Georgia. He was a quarterback for Athens, Georgia, and then he eventually went on to the NFL. He played for the Minnesota Vikings for most of his career. He ended up going to the Giants midway through his career, and then he ended up going back to the Vikings. But he loved the Giants so much that it hurt him to go back to the Twin Cities. Or he loved the town, New York. That's why he liked the Giants so much. It runs through his infamous 1975 playoff game where he eventually got hurt against, I believe it was the Dallas Cowboys. And it's a really inspiring and exciting book. And I liked it a lot because it was about the Vikings, and I know you like the Vikings too, Mr. Wallace. So, yeah, I just thought it was a very good book, and any Vikings fan or just like reading about the sport should read it.
My book was Dat Tackling Life by Dat Nguyen, Tackling Life in the NFL. Dat is the first Vietnamese American player to make it to the NFL. He played his entire career in Texas. He played his high school football there. He went to Texas A&M and played for the Aggies. And then he got drafted by the Cowboys, and he played there until 2005. He was a middle linebacker, but he started out on special teams. This book has to do with sports and society. One, it's football, NFL, pretty sports. And he's breaking a barrier, not a color barrier / ethnic barrier, because being the first Vietnamese American is kind of setting the bar for Asian American players who can follow in his footsteps, so that it's not just so sports like the NFL aren't dominated by just white and African American athletes. He was born in a Vietnamese camp, so I don't know, it's like being born in the inner cities and growing up and trying to be successful that way, kind of how Hoop Dreams was. Another thing that has to do with society, at least, is it's the book's kind of the American dream, 1 in a million chance, because Dad's family barely escaped the North Vietnamese army, and so not a lot of people did that. And when they came here to America, that's how he got his start. Grew up in the camps or whatever, and then that's how this book connects to sport and society.
I read America's Quarterback, Bart Starr and the Rise of the National Football League. It's by Keith Donovan, and it stories how Bart Starr came to be in the league and talks about his career there. But what's most interesting about it is at the beginning of the book talking about his life growing up and stuff. When he was little, his older brother died from an infected cut, and Keith talks about how if it hadn't happened, his brother hadn't died, he wouldn't have the relationship they did with his father, because his older brother was his father's favorite son, according to him, and it got him closer to a father and made him into the person he was. And he talked about if how that hadn't happened, he wouldn't be how he is now. The book also goes into about how his relationship with his father and Coach Lombardi were very similar and how they both pushed him to become the man that he was. The main part of the book is how Bart Starr revolutionized the quarterback position. He's on one of the best teams to ever play in the NFL, and a lot of people would consider him in like top 10, top 15 quarterbacks ever. And if you look at the time that he played in, he didn't play in a time when like they ran the ball or anything. So he completely changed like passing and stuff, and he helped make the NFL what it is today. The book didn't exactly relate to sports and society, but there were some things like he didn't really grow up in like that great of a area and stuff. Like his home life was not perfect, like I said. His dad favored him over others, so it kind of gets at the whole thing of like problems within families and stuff. It also relates a little bit to the movie we watched about Maurice Claret, because it goes in depth about the coach-player relationship and things like that, and how they influence your decisions a lot. Like, he married his wife when he was still in college, but he didn't want to tell his coach because he's afraid that if he did, he'd get kicked off the football team, and that had a big impact on his decisions.
I read the book Jim Candy, which is about a high school football player who's a freshman, and he plays on varsity his freshman year, and he goes for a touchdown in a playoff game and gets stopped by their rival 2 feet short. And so in the off season the next year, he takes steroids from a trainer at his local gym, and he keeps taking it, and there's all these side effects, and it's ruining his friendships and his relationships, and it's tearing his family apart. And he got mad at his parents. This relates to sports and society because he used performance-enhancing drugs to enhance his performance. In several debates in this class, it was about athletes enhancing their performance, and it's a societal issue.
For my book, I chose to read Moneyball by Michael Lewis. You may be familiar with the film that is titled the same, Moneyball, that stars Brad Pitt in the movie. The book is very similar to the movie. It goes through the use of sabermetrics in baseball, which is the idea that you can study statistics, things like stolen bases, RBI, home runs, batting average, things like that, to determine how good a player might pan out in the major leagues. So it goes through the story of the Oakland Athletics, who were not a super competitive baseball team at the time, and they used sabermetrics. Their general manager, Billy Beane, used sabermetrics to try to draft some of his players, and it was kind of not a controversial thing, but a lot of true baseball fans were kind of against the whole idea that you could just use statistics to truly to determine the value of a player. It was usually something you'd watch. You could go to the game and just see if a player was good. Well, this new idea of sabermetrics, an idea that a person by the name of Bill James came up with, the idea that you could use stats. So it kind of goes through the story of how the Athletics built their roster. Some of the players are still on it today. And it talks about how Billy Beane really built a roster out of players that might have not been known as the best players, but he knew that, by using sabermetrics and statistics, he could find the best players to fit his roster. And it's definitely a good read, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie with Brad Pitt. And if you don't want to read the book, definitely watch the movie. It's a really great movie and book.
I read my book on Fading Echoes by Mike Sulewski. Its setting is in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. And in this town, there's 2 high schools that have a really great football rivalry. The 2 high schools are Central Bucks West and Central Bucks East. On the West team, there is a captain by the name of Brian Buckley. And then on the East team, there's a player called Colby Umbrell, I believe. And they both go on and play college football, and they actually meet each other on the gridiron where they become actually pretty good friends and everything else. And then go on and play college football. One plays at UMass, and another one plays at an FCS school. and they kind of like meet again once when September 11th, the attacks on September 11th happen. And so they go on to basically fight over there, and one of them comes back and the other one doesn't. And I didn't think the book really related to sports and society, as it was just kind of like two men going from being boys and playing football and college football to just sacrificing their lives to go fight for our country. And it doesn't really like show how any of the sports has shaped them into the people they have become and how it kind of relates to society at all.
Let's wrap up this hour of Swag Center with the Not Top 10. And we're back. Hold on, let me just.
Okay, let's just say
you don't need a lot
you
of
want a
nights
cell
to
phone,
go
right?
out.
You want a cell phone, right?
No.
Hoop Dreams was a book that shadowed the lives of two athletes by the names of Arthur Agee and William Gates. And Arthur Agee got killed and
What are you?
Sell it to like.
Max Seth with you live in San Antonio, Texas at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. I'm here with number one middle linebacker recruit Javante Jones from Birmingham, Alabama. Represent!
You know, he brings up a good point. Because, I mean, this teaches them lifelong lessons that would be important to teach their children to have children when they're young.
No.
Stop!
No.
Stop!
I can see your reflection in the microwave.
Mine?
Yeah.
Okay, Hoop Dreams is a book that...
Have you ever had a hot dog at a football game? They're like $3.50. So, me.
That is an excellent question. Well, Max, that is an excellent question. It relates to sports because it's a book about sports. And it relates to society because it brings up lots of societal issues, such as like race and gender. And that hurt. That's a concussion right there. That's what a concussion is, folks. Oh man, I got a headache now. Okay. Yo, what up? It's your man Kyle. Okay. A little bit of gender issues and like financial issues, like about attending the school. And it's just a positive book. It's positive in some ways and negative in others. Societal issues such as race, gender a little bit, financial issues, Chicago. That is a really thought out question, Max. I forgot the question.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Swag Center. We'll see you again tonight after the Seahawks 49ers game, after the Seahawks lose, Blakely.